Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. We're talking modern workflow for high volume photographers. Happy to welcome to the event space Scott Wyden Kivowitz. Scott, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. It's a wonderful Thursday. Wonderful Thursday.
Ah, it is Thursday. It's such a weird concept when you have a couple of days off during the week, and then
Yeah,
all of a sudden you think it's Monday and it's almost Friday. Not a
yeah.
bad thing. I'm not complaining.
Not a bad
I'm
thing.
not, I'm
Yeah,
not
no.
complaining at all. So thanks for being here. We welcome you to the event space. Welcome everybody for joining us. Want to give a huge thanks to our sponsors over at Imagen for sponsoring this event. If you have any questions that you want to get over to Scott, please feel free. Get them in. If you're joining us here on Zoom, you can use the Q&A tab. If you're joining us on Vimeo or Facebook, you can use the comment section. But otherwise, I'm going to remove myself from this because I don't have anything to contribute, but Scott does. The other Scott does.
Yeah,
Double
yeah.
Scottish today. So get those questions in. Enjoy, and thanks for being here, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I am going to share my screen. Um, first, yeah, thank you, B&H, for having me. I really appreciate having me here. Um, Scott, can you just confirm that you're seeing everything okay? You can see my screen
I
on your
can,
end?
in fact, see your screen. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So I want to just preface this entire talk and everything with I am getting over a cold. Or I got over a cold, but I've got this lingering cough. It's not COVID, thankfully. But I'm gonna be muting myself every so often before I choke and so I can get it out. So with that, today we are here to talk about a modern workflow for high volume photographers. Now, a lot of what you might hear if you are a high volume photographer already might be something that you're already well familiar with, but there's a lot of stuff here that's worth discussing and seeing how you can improve on your workflow if you haven't made adjustments already. So there are many ways to the finish line to a good workflow, to the end of a project, end of a job, whatever it might be. We are here to talk about a modern way to go about it, but to do so, we have to look back at the classic ways, the ways that uh, so many photographers are still to this day handling their workflows. Now, there's a lot of bullets in a couple of these slides, and that's because there's a lot to talk about. So I'm going to try to get through this in a nice, you know, time frame. Classic workflows. They all start with calls or emails that go back and forth, right? You're manually going back and forth with your leads to get the sort of desire confirmed that they want to book you. You get that, you send out a contract, you get the contract signed, you get your deposit, you ask for it, you tell them how to send the deposit. It's either a check or you send them you know a Venmo or whatever it is to get your deposit, and then you add it to your calendar, right? So now you've gone through this process of this back and forth talking to your lead to get them to actually book. Then once you book, you now have to physically mail or email a planning guide to your client. If it's a wedding, obviously you're going to want to send a wedding planning guide. If it's a family session, you're going to want to send a family session guide, whatever that might be. Uh, you're then going to, when the time comes, you're going to go out and you're going to photograph the client and go on, all the fun stuff that comes with that part. I'm not going to be here to talk about that part of the process as much, but obviously we're all photographers. That's our favorite thing to do. Although in a photography business, it's the least amount of time of the whole process. Um, and then you head back home to your studio, wherever it is, and you import your photos. And then you're going to organize to your liking. And that might be putting them in a folder or folders. That might be putting them in, time order. That might be grouping them into, the part of the day. If it's a wedding, for example, you might do, the first looks separate from a separate folder from, the reception and so on. And you're going to prepare for culling. And then you're going to cull photos one by one until you're happy with the final set. So a lot of photographers are using Photo Mechanic or Bridge or Lightroom or Fast Raw Viewer, or there's so many apps that are out there for going through your photos one by one and culling to see what is the best. And so you're going to do that. You're going to create that final set, and then you're going to bring your photos into Photoshop or Lightroom for editing. If you're Photoshop, you're obviously editing one by one. If you're doing it in Bridge, it's sort of one by one, but you could also use Bridge and copy your uh, Adobe Camera Raw edits in from Bridge over to other photos. If you are in Lightroom, you're probably using presets, which presets are basically a blanket of settings that you're applying, to each of your photos. And you're going to go the one by one or in batches to do that. And that takes time, right? That takes a lot of time. You're then going to export from wherever you are or save. So if you're in Photoshop, you're going to save it as a JPEG, export as a JPEG, and so on. Lightroom, you're going to do an export hopefully as a batch and just export all as JPEGs. You're going to save it to an SSD, a flash drive, or Dropbox, Google Drive, whatever it might be. You're going to save it somewhere that's where you're going to utilize it for client delivery. And then you're going to meet with your client for print and album sales. And this could be through a Zoom, right? This could be through a Google Meet. This could be through whatever platform it is. Could be just FaceTime. FaceTime you can now share your screen, so you can literally do it through there as well. Or it might be in person. The real classic way pre-COVID was actually like meeting up at a coffee shop or at a studio and actually doing this sales process in person. And then you're gonna so you're gonna sell your prints and whatnot, and then you're gonna deliver your digitals on a CD, on a DVD, on a flash drive, whatever it might be. So there's this whole process where there's a lot of manual steps that come into play. Now, there's two things I left out here. The first is to not forget to nurture your leads in the beginning of this process. So if I go back a step, we've got this calls or emails back and forth, okay? That's what I mean by nurturing the leads in the beginning. You've got to do this manually, right? In this classic workflow. And then at the end, you have to nurture your clients, ask for reviews and referrals, all at the end of this classic workflow. And again, in a classic workflow, this is manually done. You're either sending out a thank you card in the mail, you're sending out an email, whatever it might be. You're doing this, one by one for every client you have. If you are a wedding photographer, that could be 30 clients you're doing this to a year. If you're a even higher volume wedding photographer, it could be 70, clients you're doing every year. If you're a family photographer, you could be looking at 100 or more clients you're doing every year. It always obviously depends on the photographer and the business. Now, historically, photographers spend an hour and a half editing for every hour of photography. So this meant that a photographer's workflow from start to finish could take 12 or more hours for a high volume job like a wedding. 12 hours, okay, for just editing alone. You've already done you've already photographed the wedding. You've already culled the wedding. You've already gone through a lot of the stuff you would do before editing. Now you're doing 12 more hours of just editing, right? So the solution is to utilize modern technology to enhance and speed up your photography workflow from start to finish. So looking at this chart, you can see that there is one simple change to a workflow that can save around 12 hours of editing time for an 8-hour wedding, or 36 hours of editing for a multiple day event, like photographing the Olympics or the NBA finals, right? Whatever it might be. An 8-hour wedding, 12 hours is 12 hours of editing, right? A 12-hour wedding, 18 hours of editing. A 4-hour job, let's say you're doing a couple family sessions back to back, you're talking 6 hours of editing, of editing. So this is an obvious area to save time in your high volume workflow. Now you might be thinking it's hard to let go on your editing, but I promise you, there's a lot of photographers that have been outsourcing editing to humans and to artificial intelligence for a long time. I mean, artificial intelligence is newer, but people have been outsourcing to humans for years and years and years. Um, and you're not really letting go of your creativity. You're just sort of letting go of the actual implementation of it, right? And you can still oversee it if you really want to. So I can tell you that once you do it, you'll wish you did it sooner because it's going to free up so much time. And you can spend that time elsewhere, which is super, super important. So let's talk about now a modern workflow. Now that I've just shared with you that an obvious area to improve on your time is editing. There's others. Let's talk about a modern workflow. So first, you get a lead, and that lead goes right into a CRM, a customer relationship management software. That CRM is going to automatically nurture your leads. It's going to automatically schedule your calls, automatically send your contracts, get your deposit, finalize bookings, deliver planning guides to clients. One tool to do all of that. And you are very much hands off. It's a hands-on process to set it up in the beginning because you want to set it up in your words the way that you would do it manually, and you have to set it up with fail safes. So if somebody replies, they're not getting the next automation. If they book, they're not getting another nurturing email. If they do the deposit, they're not getting a reminder to do a deposit, and so on. You've got to set these fail safes so that it stops at certain points. But there's multiple tools that can automate that process for you. You're then going to photograph the client, which just like we talked about before, and you're going to head back home or to your studio and import it directly into Lightroom with organization already in place. Again, you set this up ahead of time. Lightroom follows your desires for future imports. And if needed, I'm a big fan of using collections and collection sets in Lightroom. So if needed, use collection sets. Everybody has their own organization and workflow method inside of Lightroom. Me personally, I use one that probably most wedding photographers wouldn't use, but it's just for my own sanity. I like going by year, then month, then day in my folders, and then I use collections and collection sets to determine how I organize that within Lightroom itself, okay? But the folder structure for me is year, month, day. So you get into Lightroom. You then send your collection or your folder, depending on how you work, to Imagen for automated culling, okay? Imagen is working on AI culling. I will talk about that in a little bit. But you would send your photos that you just shot to Imagen for AI culling, and that'll be done super fast. You have it back to you, ready to go, ready for editing. You then review your culled photos and narrow it down, just make sure it's correct or make your tweaks to adjust how you need. And then you're going to edit those culled photos with Imagen with your unique editing style or a talent AI profile. And I will talk about this again in a little bit. So editing process goes very fast as well. Again, you're not giving up your creativity because Imagen can learn from your creativity and then edit like you. So you get your photos back from Imagen. A lot of people are saying we're getting about 95, 96% there. You then make your final adjustments as needed, maybe some blemish removals if needed, whatever it might be. And then you move on to the next step, which is to upload your photos to your CRM's gallery feature. Or if your CRM for whatever reason doesn't offer a gallery feature, there's other tools that can do that as well to create the gallery to then sell prints, sell albums, sell digital downloads, whatever it might be. There are gallery tools to, again, automate this process. Then you're going to offer an in-person sales meeting or a virtual in-person sales meeting, that's IPS or VIPS, using your CRM's IPS tool. A lot of these CRMs, again, offer these tools to do in-person sales, whether in-person or virtual, which will be showing your gallery while you're face-to-face with your client, showing an album proof while you're face-to-face with your client. And then the final step is to then deliver digitals, because at this point your prints have been ordered, deliver digitals using your CRM, okay, which instead of having to upload your photos again to another cloud storage, you're now just utilize it's already on your ready on your CRM. They've already picked their photos. Now you're just delivering the photos using the CRM. And then that same CRM is now sending your client nurturing emails, sending your referral requests and review requests all automatically to your clients. The job is done. Now you're doing all the nurturing and it's all automated. Whereas before with the classic, you again have to finish it all manually. Okay. So there's lots and lots of tools to help with your workflow in various ways. So I'm going to start with the CRM. Some of the more common ones are Sprout Studio, Studio Ninja, Tave. Those are all very photography specific. Honeybook is not photography specific, but there are a lot of photographers who use it. And then Unscripted app was mobile only. They now launch a desktop version, and that's a very cool tool as well. And it's sort of still the new kid on the block when you're talking about the CRM space, but definitely worth looking into. And their mobile app is absolutely fantastic. They did start on mobile, so their mobile app is really fantastic. When it comes to emails, the most common choice is MailChimp. Another one that has come up more recently in the past few years is Flowdesk. And then there is sticky emails, which is one of my personal favorites because not only do they offer a lot of nurturing built in, but they even give you nurturing campaigns that you can start with and then modify. So in fact, when you go in and you say, okay, I want to use this family session nurturing pack that they offer, you put in your business name, your information, and then it just fills in the blanks for you. And then you can adjust from there. So sticky email is really, really good as well. And then ConvertKit is very similar to MailChimp. It's not photography specific, but it's another one that's been growing over the years. And compared to MailChimp, it's probably a little bit less expensive. Now, I will say that a lot of these CRMs on that first box also offer email marketing, like Sprout Studio. Honeybook, I believe, even offers email marketing. So you don't always need a separate tool for email marketing, but it is an option, of course, if your CRM does not do it for you. Okay, then there's the digital asset management. Those are the DIM that you see there in the box. So the most popular digital asset manager is Lightroom Classic, okay? The most popular by far. The next most popular is Capture One, and then right after that is On One Photo Raw. So there's a lot of digital asset managers that these are all tools that offer a catalog functionality or a catalog-like functionality, because Capture One and On One Photo Raw you could both use similar to how as like a browser like Adobe Bridge, but it functions like a catalog even if it's not an actual catalog with a database. Whereas Lightroom Classic, it is a catalog with a database no matter what. There is no alternative. So I'm sure at this point in time, it's 2022, it's almost 2023, which is absolutely so strange to think about. But everybody's got to be familiar with Lightroom Classic versus Lightroom. I will stress the point that if you are a full-time working photographer, Lightroom, and you're using the Lightroom ecosystem, the Adobe ecosystem, Lightroom Classic is where you want to start with. If you want to use Lightroom or Lightroom Mobile, then always start with Lightroom Classic and then sync to Lightroom on the different devices as needed. Okay, album design. Now, you could outsource your album design 100% to a human. There are many human-based companies that do album designs, but if you want software to still do it in-house, but do it really efficiently, then there's two companies out there that do extremely well in this. The leader of the space is Fundy Designer. Amazing. They've built some sort of AI into it. It's not, I don't know if it's fully AI, but it definitely has some smart capabilities where it doesn't use templates to build your albums. It builds its own templates on the fly based on the images that you give it. And it even orders the images in the album by your ratings and things like that. So it's a really cool system. And then there's also another one called Smart Albums, which it's very similar in the fact that it allows you to do really intricate smart designs for your albums. and both offer integrations with album print companies and things like that. So really great tools out there if you need album design software. Then comes gallery and delivery. Now, again, if you're CRM, you can see the first one on the list is Sprout Studio. The last one on the list is actually Unscripted App, because both of them are CRMs, but also offer gallery delivery capabilities in their product. So, PickTime is a gallery delivery company that also offers some CRM capabilities. So, definitely look through the various tools out there, because if you're looking for all in one, then you've got to stick with the companies that do all in one. If you want, if you like certain aspects from one company, but you like certain things of another, like if you like the design of PickTime galleries versus the Sprout Studio galleries, then maybe you want both. It all depends. But I will say that if you can have everything in one, and one tool is managing your entire ecosystem of customer data, then it's just going to be more efficient for you in the long run. Now, PickTime, like I said, does offer some CRM capabilities. They have been expanding that lately, so there's a lot of cool things to check out there. Shoeproof is the same company as Tave, so there's some direct integration there. And then Smart Galleries is not integrated with a CRM, but they actually are the same company as Smart Albums. So if you're looking for a good gallery company that also does good album design, you've got that that option there. All right. IPS and VIPS. That should have said VIPS, not VPS. So there's a little mistake there. Not a big deal. Sprout Studio again offers IPS capabilities built in. The leader of IPS and VIPS is Swift Galleries. They were once called Preveal, and then I think they changed names to something else, and then they eventually became Swift Galleries. They are the leader in IPS and VIPS, but even Smart Albums can even offer IPS capabilities as well, because it's through the cloud. So there's a lot of software out there to do that. But again, like everything else, find something that integrates, that makes your life easier. That is the goal here. Modernize. The next thing to talk about is artificial intelligence. So at Imagen, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit. We are coming out with AI photo culling very soon. We already are the leader in the AI photo editing space. And again, I'll talk about that in a little bit. But both of these can literally use artificial intelligence to make your life easier, to make your job easier as a photographer, so you can get back to focusing on what you love, instead of worrying about that tedious stuff. Next up is Xire keywording. So Xire has two different softwares. One's called Xire Search, and one's called Xire Photo. So if you're the type of photographer who likes to keyword your photos, then this is where that can come in handy. If you do stock photography, let's say you're a family photographer, but on the side you do stock photography, or you're a wedding photographer, and when you have a couple 3 months of downtime seasons, you do some stock photography with your clients or whatever it might be. Keywording is essential there. So Xire uses artificial intelligence to come up with keywords for your photos. And then in the Lightroom plugin, which is called Xire Search, you can actually take those keywords and add them as actual keywords in Lightroom. So instead of it just being in the Xire database, you could utilize the keywords and transfer them into your Lightroom photos. So that way, when you go to export those from Lightroom and bring them into whatever stock site you're using, or whatever it might be, those keywords are already there automatically in the metadata. Or if you just like to find a bride that had a blue accent on their dress, that's also a great tool for that too. So Xire Photo is standalone software. Xire Search is a Lightroom plugin. Then there's things like what Adobe is doing with what they call Adobe Sensei. That's their AI server. Being able to do subject selection, sky selection. Those are other ways to utilize artificial intelligence in your favor for different things. So there's a lot of really cool things with AI doing different things for your photos and for your photography business in various ways. And then finally, the last thing I'm going to mention is the stuff to connect all the things. So if you are using something like Sprout Studio and you have a WordPress site and you want your WordPress form plugin to connect with Sprout Studio, you've got to use Zapier to make that happen. There's no like direct integration with a lot of these platforms into something like a WordPress. Or if you want your Fundy album sale to go into Scratch Studio, it might be a Zapier thing. You know, I that's not, don't take my word for that one, but just an example, like to connect different things, different platforms to different platforms. Zapier and If This Then That are two different tools, services that can connect A to B to C, and so on and so forth. So of course, there are a dozen of additional tools and services that you can pick from to help modernize your workflow. But again, the key is to choose what is best for your photography business. Choose what is best for your photography business. Now, Imagen learns how you edit in Lightroom Classic based on 5,000 previously edited photos. Imagen edits like you because it learns from you. Yes, you have the ability to create a personalized profile so our AI edits like you. It's mind-blowing when you see it actually work. You can take a side by side and either you won't see a difference, or many times it'll look better than your own edit, because AI takes the human element out of editing. It takes the emotion out of editing. It does learn how you edit and your creativity, but it takes things that if you just happen to not like something because of maybe you were just not in a good mood that day, and then your edits look different that one day, AI won't make that mistake, right? So if you don't have 5,000 photos to begin with to create your own profile, or if you don't have your own unique editing style, we have what we call talent AI profiles. We are the only app that has talent AI profiles. It makes onboarding extremely easy for any photographer of any experience level. And we have a wide range of editing styles to choose from. We have photographers like Susan Stripling, who, as Scott might know, is from Brooklyn and Baltimore now. But we have photographers like Charmy Pena. We have photographers like Sarah Edmonds and John Branch the Fourth, and oh man, I could just keep going. We have so many fantastic photographers from all over the world that have such unique editing styles that are already available inside of the app, built from over 40,000 edits for each profile. So they're extremely accurate, they're extremely consistent. So it makes it easy for anybody to come on and even try it and see if they like what Imagen can do for them. So here's how the pricing works. It's 5 cents a photo, and it can edit 1,500 photos in 10 minutes or less. All right. If you edit a cold wedding, let's say of 300 photos, you're looking at $15 for Imagen's editing. Not only is that more affordable than a human editor, but the time saving and accuracy will blow your mind. Okay. Now, we've also recently improved the algorithm. It's now delivering at extremely higher levels of accuracy and consistency, which can cut your editing process up to 96%. And we're now editing photos at a faster rate. It used to be 1,000 photos in 20 minutes, but our incredible AI team has brought editing time down to 0.33 seconds a photo, which is 150 a minute, or 1,500 photos in 10 minutes. It's really, really incredible to see consistent, accurate edits in such a little amount of time. So this is our why. You know, Imagen was created to help photographers spend less time on the tedious and repetitive post-production tasks so you can get back to focusing on what you love. We literally were born out of we have 3 co-founders, literally born out of one of our co-founders being photographed for his wedding. His wedding was photographed during the pandemic, and his wedding photos didn't come back for over 3 months. And turned out that he saw the photographer at another wedding and said, "What's taking so long?" He got the explanation. He said, "There's a better way to do this." This one of our co-founders, his name is Yoav. He was in the AI space already. He worked in AI for a very long time, and he said there's got to be a better way. So he literally shadowed. He's one of our shadowed one of our current talent photographers, and created the original software around that photographer, and then it's expanded from there. So the whole, literally the company was born to save photographers time, make their lives easier. So Imagen culling is working. It's around the corner. We are really excited about this. Really, really excited about this. You can narrow your photos down dramatically. And we are open for beta. So if anybody wants to sign up for beta testing, you're welcome to. The links right there on the screen, imagenai.com with the /culling, and you can sign up for beta testing. And and what that's going to do, for anybody who's not super familiar with the culling process, so the culling process is, you've got, let's say you have 3,000 photos you made at a wedding, and you want to narrow it down to an acceptable number that you could then edit and then show your clients and stuff like that. So the whole point is to look at what are the absolute best photos. There are solutions out there that do culling for you, and it looks heavily at blurs and closed eyes and things like that. We are looking at it from a human perspective, because a lot of times at weddings, for example, and portraits, closed eyes is fine and desired, or blur might be intentional. So we are looking at it from a human perspective, not only looking at closed eyes and blurs, but is it an appealing photo to a human? That's what we are training our AI to recognize. We're also working on local adjustments. This has been a very popular request. It's currently in internal testing, and we plan to have it available by the end of 2022. This basically means it's going to learn from our customers' use of the brush tool, of the gradient tool, and stuff like that, in order to create local adjustments for you as well. And it's pretty fascinating how effective it works. We also have a podcast, so if you love the topic of workflows and looking for ways to further improve on your workflows, we have a podcast called Workflows. You can just go to imagenai.com with the hyphen /podcast, and you can listen to episodes there. I am the host of that podcast, and it's amazing, the photographers I've talked to, and the amount of takeaways that come from every single episode. And finally, I guess before we get into any questions that we might have, I got through that faster than I thought I was. So if you want to get started, there's a link up on the screen, or you can just scan the QR code on the left. It goes to the same place. And you can, instead of getting started with 1,000 free edits, you can get started with 1,500 free edits. And you can start by building your own profile, or you can start by using one of the Talent AI profiles. The photos that you upload for creating your own profile, your personal AI profile, does not take away from your edit credit. That 1,500 free edits is only what you use to actually try the app and the service. So if you want to upload 30,000 photos to build a profile, you can definitely do that. So I'm going to quickly explain how that works while I have this up on the screen, so that you can have time to check it out. So basically, you are going to open the app, and you're going to choose your Lightroom catalog, and we are going to identify your photos either in the folders or the collections, depending on what you prefer, of what you want to use to create your profile. This is the most time-consuming part of the process, because you do have to upload your Lightroom catalog and either smart previews, if you already use them, which I do recommend, or if you don't, we are basically building our own version of smart previews. So that's why it could take a little bit longer if you don't already have smart previews. And we're going to upload these highly compressed raw files with the data of all of your edits along with it to our servers. And then within 72 hours after uploading everything and confirming that you're done, after 72 hours, give or take, it's usually less than 72 hours, but your profile will be done. You'll get an email saying your profile is ready. And from there, you can go on and test out those 1,500 free edits. And you can test it out, again, with your profile. You can test it out with the Talent AI profile. I do recommend, if you do your own personal AI profile, to compare it to your existing edits, because it is really fascinating when you do side by sides. So there's the link up on the screen. That's the bit.ly link to get the 1,500 free edits, or just scan the QR code. And please don't forget to join the Imagen community, because we are there, and there's a large community of people that are available to answer questions, chat with you about workflows and whatever else you got going on, about other areas of your business that you could outsource and make more time for yourself. So I guess with that, got more than enough time for questions. Has anything come in?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll start the way I always like to start these is saying thank you for being here and
Sure.
thank you for giving us all this information, which there's a ton of information to digest, especially if you're untech savvy like myself. Everybody thinks because I work in B&H and the photo industry that I'm this genius, but joke's on you, I am not. Okay. So I will be the first one to say that, and I say that with confidence. That's okay. I'm with everybody there. Um, One thing I do want to kind of tackle and attack, because I always like to
Yeah.
sort of put this sort of stipulation on it with these 1,500 free edits.
Mhm.
Is there sort of a hard date on when that expires, when that offer
Nope.
is until that's going for? Because the reason I ask is because this will live on the internet. People
Yeah.
will rewatch this, and I
Yep.
just want to make sure that people aren't going to come back. They're not going to come after you, Scott. They're going to come after this Scott. So I just want to make sure I'm not
Yeah.
getting into any trouble here.
Yeah, yeah, no, it'll live on. And if for whatever reason ever stops working, you just let me know and I'll make sure it gets active again. But it shouldn't stop. It should always live
Awesome.
on.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So if anybody is rewatching this and you're rewatching this a year from now or whenever you rewatch this, make sure you take them up on it. Give it a shot.
Yes. Yeah.
So one thing you kind of touched on it a little bit, and I'm sure that
Hmm.
people are probably wondering out there. So I kind of want to address this myself. Is when
Yeah.
you're uploading your photos,
Yep.
is there a certain limitation in terms of file size or file type? Can you upload full raw files? Can you upload tiffs? However you
Right.
typically shoot or keep them in your catalog, can you upload that to Imagen, or does it have to be a certain standard spec?
Right. So what we are doing, so I touched on this a little bit. Basically, like we are only looking at what is edited inside of Lightroom Classic. So if you edit a photo in Lightroom Classic, then bring it into Photoshop, save it as a TIFF, and bring it back to Lightroom, we're not looking at that. We're only looking at what was done in Lightroom because that's the data that we can see. So when you upload your catalog, first thing we get is your catalog file with the database, right? So we're getting that, and which also references all the different files. And we are, if you use smart previews, literally just uploading all the smart previews of your raw files. Okay. Now, mind you, we're talking right now about raw. There's also JPEG, which I'll get to in a second. But
JPEG? What's that? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
how non-tech savvy are you? So um, if you use smart previews, which I do recommend because it actually makes Lightroom faster, and also means you don't always need your hard drive connected, which is nice, then we are literally uploading the smart previews. You don't have to do anything. We're just handling it for you. If you don't use smart previews, we are also taking the hands off you and or taking the not the hands off you. What are we taking? We're taking this complexity from you, and our app is actually going to make a temporary copy of your raw files, shrink it down, compress it to the size of a smart preview. So it's worth having a smart preview ahead of time to save that step, and then we are uploading those and then removing the temporary copies when done. So if you I do recommend just make smart previews ahead of time because then it just makes the upload faster because we don't have to go through the copy, compress, shrink process. But we are handling it for you. You don't have to do any of that if you don't want to. And then, um, so that's raw files. If you do JPEGs, it's a very different thing. You cannot build a profile that is based on raw and then send us JPEGs. If you also build a profile that is based on raw, you cannot edit JPEGs. So if you're doing raw, it's only raw. If you're doing JPEG, it's only JPEG. And that's because there's a very different color profile between the two. There's a far less color and far less to work with on a JPEG than there is raw file. So they have to be separated. And with that said, if you are doing JPEGs, I'm pretty sure, I don't ever work with JPEGs, but I'm pretty sure we literally just upload them because they're not very large. They're about the same size typically of a smart preview. Um, so it's very possible we just upload those. Maybe we shrink them a little bit. I'm not 100% sure, but again, we will handle this for you behind the scenes. You don't have to do anything yourself besides choose your catalog, choose your photos that you've edited, and hit the upload button.
Definitely. And what the dual Scots are getting at is shoot raw. But we'll brush right over
Yeah.
that. We'll brush right over that. We'll brush that under the rug. We won't go there and we won't deep dive into why you should shoot raw. But
Yeah.
we'll just say it. We'll throw it out there. Don't shoot JPEG, shoot raw. Okay. Now
Yeah. No.
so now let's go to, so that's uploading, which sounds great. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like when you take those first photos and you upload them, it'll take about 72 hours, you said, correct, in order for it to kind of all get uploaded and kind of create that
Well,
profile, correct?
no. So like, let's say you're building it on 10,000 photos. Like the minimum is 5,000 to build a profile. Let's say
Okay.
you're building it on 10,000 photos. The average, American's internet speed is pretty fast. So you could see the actual upload, the sending of those photos to our servers happen in a couple of hours. You start the upload, you walk away, go get some coffee, go work on something else, go take a nap on the couch, whatever it is. And when you come back, it's done uploading, right? Um, Once it's uploaded and you hit the "I'm done, create profile" button, at that point, when the AI, when the server starts to tells the AI, okay, build a profile based on these photos and these edits, at that point it could take up to 72 hours. It could be 24 hours, up to 72 hours for the profile to actually be made.
Got it.
Um, and now, just since we're on the topic of the AI profile, I do want to mention that the difference between a Lightroom preset and an AI profile is pretty dramatic. So a Lightroom preset I mentioned earlier that is a blanket of settings. It's a blanket of settings of exposure up 2, saturation up 5, tone curve strong, whatever you want to call it. HSL reds down, like whatever it might be. It's a blanket of settings. And then if you apply that preset to another photo, it's going to do the same exact settings to the next photo. It's not looking at that photo and saying, okay, I'm going to do this, but then I'm going to adjust it to make it look consistent. No, it's just taking those settings and putting it on the next photo and the next photo and the next photo. You have to then go and manually adjust to make it match if you want to make it match. An AI profile learns your editing style, right, from this consistent group of edits that you've supplied us. And then when we actually do the editing for you, we are editing 1,500 photos in 10 minutes, one by one, right? So we're editing one photo every 0.33 seconds, um, uh, one by one, applying your edits in your style individually for whatever the photo needs. So we're automatically going to adjust white balance or exposure as needed. We're automatically going to adjust the saturation, the hue, and all that stuff as needed, for every single photo individually. That's a pretty dramatic difference.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, you know, a no-brainer. I think personally, as somebody who, I value time, and
Hmm.
time is money, and especially if you're a working photographer, you know, that's where you make the bulk of your income.
Right.
But I want to kind of throw it out there because I know, especially in the technological era and when new things are coming out, you've always got the naysayers, right? You've always, we call them the haters, right? The
Hmm.
redditors, if you will.
Yep.
That's where they breed. You know, what do you respond to those people? Because obviously they're out there who are really, well, I'm not sure what the right word for it is, but I guess apprehensive would be the proper
Hmm.
word to call people who look at something like this and go, well, it all sounds great, but
Yeah. The biggest thing we get is like it's going to take away from the creativity. It's like, which is kind of a little bit what I talked about earlier. Like that's the biggest thing we get. But basically, the response is try it. We're literally giving you 1,500 free edits to try. And you don't even have to make your own profile. You can try any of the Talent AI profiles that we have available. And you can see for yourself how good it edits your photos. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. If it's not, if you're not a fan of it, you're not a fan of it. But um, it just is what it is. Like we're not here to force everybody. If people see the value in that time saving, um, you know, then
awesome.
great. If they're
Right.
not, we're not here to convince them. We're here to educate
Yeah.
and make tools that can help.
Yeah,
So
and I think you kind of, you sort of said it in the beginning and alluded to this a little bit. There's always going to be the people who they want full control. They want to 100% own the process themselves, and they want to do everything from A to Z without
yep.
anybody interfering. And I think, like you said, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine if that's your jam and you love it. Hey, who am I? Nobody. I'm just a guy sitting on a webinar talking with Scott. Two Scotts in a
Two
room.
Scots.
But
Yeah.
but I think, like you said, there's the value in it if you're trying to save time, if you were
Yep.
trying to get more jobs, if you're trying to free up space, which I think is kind of where everybody's always, everyone's always trying to say, hey, how do I get an extra 5 minutes of sleep? Or how do I get an
Yeah.
extra hour to go to the gym?
Yeah.
Well, here you go. Here's
I
here's
mean,
kind of
yeah. I can even take it up another level, which is probably something you haven't even considered yet, just from sitting there listening to this. Is um, a good example of a wedding photographer, or there's a bunch of wedding photographers that are doing this already in the Imagen community, where they're actually making money, making extra money by using Imagen. And here's what they do. Um, so in their contract, when they're going through the process, and for example, let's say you're using Tave or HoneyBook, that allows you to do upsells during the contract creation and contract sending process and signing process. They have an upsell that says, my typical wedding turnaround time is 3 to 6 months, 6 to 8 months, whatever it might be. Okay. However, for an extra $500, I can guarantee a 2-week turnaround time. Okay. Now, I mentioned that if you do a wedding of 300 edits, you're talking it was like $15 or something like that, right? So you're talking a lot of profit on that $500 optional upsell that you just made that a lot of your clients are going to take advantage of. They're already spending $6,000 on a wedding. What's an extra 500 to them on the credit card, right? They're going to do it to guarantee that they get their wedding photos back in 2 weeks. And the beauty about this is that these wedding photographers that are doing it are using Imagen anyway to edit their photos. It's just a matter of, are they sending it to Imagen a month after the wedding, or are they sending it to Imagen, 3 days after the wedding, and then, 2 weeks, a week and a half later, they're showing it to their clients. So
yeah.
you could easily make an extra 500 or more, depending on, what your level of as a photographer, what you charge and whatnot already. You could easily make 500 or more uh, just by outsourcing to Imagen to do the editing for you
That's
faster.
I love that. And I'm just going to plug it for you because you mentioned it before, but I'm sure that Scott is dropping knowledge like this in the podcast as well. So if you want great gems like that, if you're not thinking about things like that, how you can create extra revenue, check out the podcast. Free
Yeah.
plug, no extra
Thank you.
charge.
Thank you.
Scan
Yeah.
the QR code.
It did actually it did actually come up in the podcast. That exact topic came up, I think, in like episode 3. So and we just actually episode 12 goes out on October 1st. So and that's a really good one. There's a lot of takeaways on that one. So I'm really excited for everybody to listen to that one for sure.
Awesome. So definitely make sure to check it out. Now I want to hit you with this one. Way back when we were first going over, we were kind of diving into sort of the different ways and the different avenues. You broke it down. You've got your
Hmm.
CRM, you've got your, gallery view, all this stuff. And maybe this is something you can't talk about, and you're going to tell me, well, Scott's signed to secrecy here, but with Imagen, you've already got the AI culling down and all of that
Hmm.
stuff. What is sort of the next step? I mean, why currently is it not happening, or is it happening, or you can't talk about it? But are you guys thinking about creating sort of an all-in-one database where you'll host it as a CRM and then a gallery view and all of that stuff? Or are you going to kind of stick to that AI feature?
So I don't know where besides from culling, I don't know what other products we have planned in the near future for sure. I can't say we're gonna get into CRM or not.
Wink,
because
wink.
the reasoning is because there's so much still to do on the editing side, and the culling side for that matter, that we haven't even scratched the surface. Like I mentioned, local adjustments is coming. Like that, it's just a one tiny piece of the giant puzzle that we could do when it comes to, um, AI editing. I mean, besides from local adjustments, our biggest feature request is support for Capture One. So we're working on that as well, but I just don't have a time frame to share on that. But you know, being able to support Capture One is going to unlock a whole new possibility of, again, like Capture One users might have uh, needs that Lightroom users don't have. So getting to that could unlock even more we need to do with editing, for all we know. So
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
I like it. I like it. I like it. And just so you guys know, I don't know anything. The whole wink wink. I don't know anything. I don't have insider trading info over here. I'm just trying to twist Scott's hand over here, trying to see if I can get him to, break open the secrets. But no, that's awesome. I think everybody who watched this, or everybody who does come back and watch this, because I know there are some people who can't watch it live. We've gone back to work. Unfortunately, right? We've got to go back to the office. But scan the QR code, give it a shot. It's free. I don't think that there's any word better than free in the universe. It's right there. I'm sure if you don't have a QR code reader, you can just go to that website, correct?
Yes, yeah, that
Imagine
Bitly link is
AI.
the same.
Oh, the Bitly. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
And then that's the community at the bottom, the Imagine
correct.
hyphen to hyphen AI.com
Yep.
slash community. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, I want to thank you for being here first and foremost. Again, a ton of great
Yep.
information. Definitely, guys, girls, people, check out Scott's podcast. I think it's worthwhile. I think he's got some information. He's being very, very, under the radar, but I can tell he's got a lot of information, a lot of information behind him. And definitely want to thank our sponsors at Imagen for sponsoring the event. But that's all the time we have for now. This has been another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. We'll catch you next time.